Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to Generation X Nation. Now look at here, you guys know me. I usually do reality TV, little fun stuff, little key. Every now and then I do some church mess or some hot topics. But right now I want to talk about something very serious to me. It's near and dear to my heart because I am a resident of the state of Texas. Now, we all been following this Carmelo Anthony trial, and I know everybody has their opinion about it. I'm not going to get to the nuances of the trial because there's plenty of social media platforms that have covered it. But I'm going to say this. I want to get into bully versus the victim. Now, I know my last video I put out on the Real Housewives, I use it as the title, Bully versus Victim, and I'm going to apply it to real life. And we're going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse, George Zimmerman, Jake Lang, and Chug the Builder before we get into the Carmelo Anthony at the end. And here's what I want to say. This has been going on for quite some time in our justice system, where people who start out as bullies later on turn themselves into be the victims. But what they really are victims of circumstances that they created. Case in point, I'm going to go back to George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman started to harass Trayvon Martin for absolutely no reason at all. George Zimmerman should have minded his business because that's what Trayvon was doing when he was walking home from the store, going back to his dad's house. George Zimmerman came out, he started harassing him. He called 911. Even the police told him to leave Trayvon alone. George Zimmerman then went over to Trayvon. They get into an altercation. Trayvon don't know the strange man that's hitting on him or getting up in his face, so he's going to fight back. Of course, a stranger is trying to harass me. I'm going to fight back. He ended up getting the best of George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman basically unalived the young man, and then he claimed victim self-defense because Trayvon had beat him up. But he created that circumstances, and now he played victim, got away with it. Let's go to Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse and his mother decided to get in a vehicle at the age of 15 with a weapon and drive across state lines to join the George Floyd protests. And he wanted to help clean up the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota, I guess. He felt that they needed a 15-year-old boy to save their city. He gets into an altercation with some fellow protesters. They're defending themselves because they don't know this guy who has a weapon on him coming after them. They're going back and forth. He unalives a protester and injures another one. And then he became the victim. But he's a victim of a circumstance that he created. Let's move on to Chug the Builder. Chug the Builder, whose only mission in life is to get up, cut his camera on, and stream himself going up to random black people and using derogatory terms, calling them names, harassing and agitating them. Harassing and agitating them. And then when they try to do something about it, he pulls up and shows them his weapon and bear spray and threatens to unalive them if they touched him. Now he's in jail on $1 million bond. He is a victim of a circumstance that he created. Jake Lang, who is now the guy sitting in Dallas County Jail, he shows up to various protesters. He happens to be at the Carmelo Anthony trial. He said if Carmelo Anthony gets off, that he will hang him from a tree and unalive him himself. And now he's in jail on $1 million bond for threatening somebody. However, he is now claiming he's a victim of a circumstance that he created. See, in all of these circumstances, one thing stands for sure. If George Zimmerman would have minded his business and left that young man alone, that young man would be alive and George Zimmerman wouldn't be in the position he is today. If Kyle Rittenhouse wouldn't have got in a car and his mother drove him across state lines with a weapon, that young man that he unalived would still be here today. The one that he injured would not be injured. See, we don't want to start in the middle and the end results. Let's start at the beginning. Had those two people not took the actions they've taken, two people would be alive right now. Chug the Builder, had he listened to his guidance counselor in high school and educated himself and got a better job, apparently he had a company, I don't know. But there's plenty of things he could do, from being a doctor, a lawyer, to a plumber. But apparently, it's more lucrative to get on social media and use racial slurs and call people out of their name. I challenge some of these social media platforms to stop monetizing that type of content. You have the freedom of speech to say it. I just don't think you should be paid to say it. However, you do not have the right to harass somebody. You want to say the N word all day, that's fine. But when you walk up to people randomly, get in their face with a camera, start using that language, calling them names, telling them they chimping out, it goes past freedom of speech to harassment and possibly hate crimes. So you are now sitting in jail playing victim. Jake Lane. If y'all don't remember some of Jake Lane's history, Jake Lane was a January 6th insurrectionist. Jake Lane is the guy who went to Dearborn, Michigan, trying to throw pork on the Muslim and wanted to burn the Quran and interfere with their city council meeting. Jake Lane is actually the guy down here in Texas who went up to North Texas and went to their city council meetings about the Muslim community that they're building out there called Epic Center or Epic Central or something. That's the Jake Lane. Okay, these are the people that we are talking about. People who become victims of circumstances that they created. Now, once they get caught up into the system, after they have bullied and harassed their victims, then they want to play like they the real victim. Which takes us to the Carmelo Anthony case. I'm not going to get into the nuance of it because there's plenty of people talking about it. I will just say this. First of all, first things first, nobody should have lost their life. So I'm not making light of that young man not being here. This is no disrespect to him or his family. But what I will say is Carmelo was sitting there minding his business. They approached him. Carmelo did not approach them and started the altercation with him. Then their friends came along and joined in. And before you know it, 5 or 6 of them were surrounded that young man and they were fighting him. Now, most people, when you're in that situation, we can't tell you how you're going to react because I live in a state where everybody carries a weapon. Y'all worried about this young man having an item that he used to sharpen the spikes on track shoes when I can see people on the news every night who have been unalive for cutting them off in traffic on road rage. Because you worried about a knife when everybody in this doggone state probably got a gun somewhere in their car on their person at any given time. But let's get back to it. They bothered him. You can't tell a 17-year-old, somewhat immature, brain not developed all the way person how to react. He was in a fight or flight mode. He just wanted to get out of there. He took something, picked it up, first thing he can come across, did what he did. It was only one puncture. Unfortunately, it was one in the wrong area. So no, the man did not deserve to be unalive. I will say that again. Don't get in my comments talking nasty to me. However, that young man became a victim of a circumstance that he created. Because watch this. Had he sat his behind where he was supposed to be, went and got a resource officer or a coach and said, hey, that guy's not supposed to be sitting over here, or mind his business, he'd probably be here today. And again, I will repeat that it's not to make light of the fact that he is not here. Is to simply open your eyes to say, good Lord, if each person that I mentioned in this video had mind their business and stayed out of other people's business, they wouldn't be in jail on $1 million bonds, or they would be probably still alive today. Or wouldn't be suffering the fate that they're suffering right now, because according to them, George Zimmerman is going through it. Now, Chud the Builder, I will say this. Love to go to African Americans or Black Americans, whatever you're calling yourself nowadays, and call them ghetto, call them chimps, call them the N-word, tell them their community is trash and they're nobody. But in the same token, you live in a single wide trailer that got repossessed and foreclosed on. You should have been worrying about taking care of your family and that young child that you have that you claim needs to eat, instead of being a social media content creator and the social media king of derogatory language. Because that little raggedy trailer that they show that you live in is equivalent to them same projects and low income neighborhoods that you talk about. Imagine that. So all I'm saying is, had people mind their business and left other people alone, had Kyle Rittenhouse stayed in Indiana, Illinois, where he was from, and not went to Minnesota, that man would be alive. If Mr. Metcalf Mr. Austin had mind his business and not so much worried about Carmelo Anthony sitting under a tent, unfortunately, he'd be here today. If Jake Lane wouldn't have went up there and threatened somebody's life, he wouldn't be in jail. I believe in freedom of speech. You have that. But Jake Lane doesn't have the freedom to stand up there and threaten somebody and threaten to unalive them. Chud the Builder has the freedom to say the N-word all he wants, but he don't have the freedom to harass and antagonize somebody because that becomes a hate crime. Okay? So we have to think about when we saying freedom of speech, and they can say what they want to say. You do have freedom of speech to a certain extent. But when your freedom of speech becomes threatening and harassment, that's when you cross the law. That's when you cross the line and you break the law with the freedom of speech. You can't hide behind freedom of speech when you break the law. I expected Carmelo Anthony to get some time due to the simple fact they announced that he had a 12-person jury of all white people. I figured he's going to do some time. I did not think it would be that much. I said maybe manslaughter, but they would not let him walk out of there innocent. Now, you guys seen all the videos and social media account about who's connected to who, the judge, the prosecutor, the family, this and that. He was set up to fail from the beginning. And I hope he gets a new trial. I'm not saying he does not deserve some type of punishment. Maybe it was self-defense, maybe. But what I am saying is I'm sick and tired of people going out here causing issues in the communities, in the neighborhoods, becoming the aggressor, becoming the bully, and then call themselves victims. People who love to become victims of circumstances that they created. That's all I'm saying. And if you think I'm right about that, if I'm wrong, whatever, leave me a comment. That's just the way I see it. Everything on my channel is alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Not technically alleged, because some of this stuff actually happened, but it's my opinion, okay? And it's for entertainment purposes only. But sometimes we just have to speak out. And we need to start doing that a little bit more often than most. And for the love of God, if you get called for jury duty, please show up. We know they're going to try every which way they can to not put us on a jury, but show up anyway and make sure they don't give them any excuses not to select you. And with that being said, like I said, do you think these people were victims or do you think they were just bullies? Do you think they were just victims of circumstances that they created? That's what I got out of it. All right, this is Gen X Nation, and I will be back with the mess, okay? Because my reality TV shows start tonight. I'll be putting up videos Saturdays and Sundays and Mondays, and we'll get back to the good stuff, okay? Because at the end of the day, we can't constantly allow this negative stuff to take over. But we are praying for both families. I'm praying for the family that lost somebody, and I'm also praying for the family of Carmelo, and I hope he gets a fair trial next time. That's all I'm saying. I hope his appeal go through and I hope he gets a fair trial because we all know that that trial was not fair. And with that being said, and again, one last comment. Don't get in any comments leaving any racial, derogatory, or nasty things. You can speak. I love freedom of speech, but what you will not do is disrespect me on my platform because I will block you. And with that being said, this Gen X Nation, you guys go and have a great rest of your day. And as always, peace, and I'm out.